Welcome back to Josh's Smart Home. Today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of permanent outdoor lights and seeing, which ones may be the best for you. We're going to take a look at the Asahom as well as the Govee. I'm going to show you what, they look like, the up close on these. I'm going to let you know what the installs are like because I'm going to actually have these installed on my friend's house and these are getting installed on my house to match the lights we already have. And then I'll let you see at the end, what they look like once they're installed and give you my feedback and give you my final thoughts on, what may be right for you, what considerations to make so that you can make the right choice. All right, we got these out and I have them side by side. And the first thing you're going to notice is they look pretty darn similar between the two. First reactions that I had when I was opening up the boxes, Govee's definitely more professional boxes, so everything's a little bit more organized, better boxes. Everything's sturdier on the boxes and everything here. It's just packaging, so not a huge deal. The Asahom has, everything we need. It looks very similar. It's bundled very similar. One of the things I did notice was that the LEDs on this one look different than the Govees. Another observation immediately was that the Asahom actually has less LEDs. So this one has 60 and this one has 72. So you have a few more LEDs across the span of 100 feet with the Govee than what you do with the Asahom, but I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference. Once we get these installed, you'll be able to see that one. Another difference is that the Govee lights are IP67, but the control box is actually rated for IP65. So I think that, it's going to be important to put that somewhere that we have protected. I'm going to put the first set in our garage, and then we have another set I'm installing as well. I got an outdoor, box for underneath our deck so that I can protect them that way. The Asahom are actually IP67 for the lights as well as the control unit. So I think it would be safe to, go ahead and place that outside as long as you don't have it down where it's going to be sitting in puddles or something along those lines. It should be good to go there. Here's the up close view of the lights. This one here on the right is the Asahom, and this one is the Govee. And you can see the separation of the LED in the middle for the Asahom and just the consistent with the Govee. So we'll have to see what these look like once they're up and installed and see what the differences are in some of the colors you can achieve with the Asahom. Continuing on, you do have, basically the same 3M on the back of both of these. The size of both of these are very, very similar, if not exactly the same. It looks like the housing on this one's a little bit different than the Asahom, and it's more of a standard, flat housing on the particular on the Govee here. I'm going to look at the control units, compare these side by side. So the power bricks are pretty close. Asahom's a little bit smaller than the Govee in this instance. And then if we go over to the control units, we have a couple of different options on the Asahom, which I'll have to look into and see what they are. And the Govee just has power on and off. And then there's one other aspect here that I want to point out. The Asahom comes with this remote. The Govee does not have a remote. So this is a pretty interesting idea that you could have this located somewhere close to the lights or somewhere convenient to you. You don't have to pull out your phone. You could just hit something on this. Or if you want to, either of the two, you can actually work with the Amazon Assistant or the Google Home Assistant. So you can have those options as well. But it's pretty neat that Asahom has this remote here. And the final thing I wanted to show here was the connections, and they look identical here. So I think these might even be, the same manufacturer or interchangeable. The extensions could potentially be interchangeable as well. So that's something that would be interesting to see, but it definitely looks like it's the same setup for the connections. And I mean, it's quite possible these are manufactured in the same plant with the same company being the manufacturer behind both with just slightly different, models here. Now that we got through the initial specs, let's go ahead and look at the installation of each of these and do a comparison there, as well as a final review of what they look like and my final thoughts. So what was it like installing one versus the other? Really not much different at all. And I really think they're made by the same manufacturing or the same manufacturing plant or something along those lines. They have the same connector. We were able to interchange between the two without any issue at all. So it worked out really well. In both instances, I found that the 3M, stickers on the back of them was sufficient to hold those up as long as you did a really good job of cleaning. So I used some rubbing alcohol. I tended to wipe for, 30 seconds. As long as you didn't put excess pressure on them, none of them fell down. There was one that fell down from the Asahom and one that fell down on mine, but in both those instances, there was undue stress on the light. It was not the weight of the light. In both those instances, they were being pulled. My situation was a contractor needed to get there and had to yank it off. So, some force was applied. And on the Asahom, the force was applied through us pulling the strings pretty taut there. So it was a lot of weight on that light. So obviously it couldn't withstand that without a screw on that one. But other than that, everything withheld, very easily with the 3M tape on the back, and they've been up for months and in some instances over a year at this point. No issues at all, no failures. Now the lights are installed, how do they compare? And they're actually pretty similar in a lot of aspects. They both light up the front of your house or the sides or wherever you install them, going down the side of your house. And they both have a lot of the same kind of scenes and that type of thing. So if you're looking for a Christmas scene or a July 4th scene, they have those kind of scenes. So I'll show you here a couple of different options you have. So first, this will be the Asahom Christmas scene. This one you're seeing right now is called Christmas Bee. And now this will be the Govee Christmas scene. Lots of very similar items here. So nothing puts one ahead of the other when it comes to, the more dynamic scenes and the special occasions and that type of thing. But the one area where the Asahom really leads is the warm white light. So check out the warm white light here. And then when you get the Govee, you get this light. The other thing the Asahom has is the remote control, which isn't always really required, but it's pretty neat to have that available. Speaking of control, they both can be controlled via voice assistant. So that's another similarity they have. They both have their own app. There are positives and negatives about each of the apps, so nothing really in particular that puts one ahead of the other. As far as specs goes, there's a lot of similarities, with waterproofing and that type of thing. So again, it's pretty much a push there on the specs. And you're probably wondering about Home Assistant. That's actually something I would say is a negative of both. Govee, I've had them working off and on in Home Assistant, but I've actually given up to the point where I use the Google Home to control them. So I have the automation set up in Google Home because that works actually superior to the app. When I've set up automations in the app, I've had issues with the automations not running when they're supposed to. So I found the Google Home automations to actually work the best, which is really ironic that it's not in their own app, but it's what works. And I know at my friend's house for the Asahom, definitely Google controls those without any hitch. And, the voice assistant works well there too. So again, pretty much a push. Neither of them really in Home Assistant, but they have that voice control that can make up for it, and you can do some automations there. So it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do like a particular scene from Home Assistant, I wouldn't bank on that. And this brings us to my final thoughts. At this point, what I would do is if I was buying a brand new set of lights, I would certainly buy the Asahom. You get the remote and you get the warm white light, and you typically get a discount on the price from the Govee. So if you're looking for those, you can check out either of them in the description below, but I would be picking the Asahom. Most of the other items are a push. The scenes, the installation, a lot of the specs, everything's pretty much, very similar to the point where you're not going to be able to tell the difference unless you have them side by side. So no issue with any of the specs there, or the installation or anything like that. The apps are about a push. And again, Home Assistant's not really much of an option from my point of view. So look at using one of the voice assistants they integrate with. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos.